Anyway, my name is Don Isaac, and I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Research and Grants. And I'm pleased to host this sabbatical presentation with Dr. Cindy Tanis. As you noted, hopefully when you logged in, the presentation is being recorded, and it will be posted on the ORG YouTube channel. And following this presentation, I don't know if it'll be a day or so, but Yvonne Rodriguez will be emailing all the attendees with the URL to that YouTube channel as well, just in case you want to kind of see it again. And included in that email, she'll have a link to a journal publication that Dr. Tanis developed during her sabbatical research. And that link, actually, I also have already put in the chat here. So if you want to look at it or save it that route, go right ahead. Dr. Cindy Tanis is an associate professor in the Department of Kinesiology. She started right here at APU, earning her BS in athletic training and physical education, followed by a master's of education. And then she went on to earn her Ph.D. from University in sports psychology. Dr. Tanis's distinguished career at APU includes having served as head clinical athletic trainer for 11 years. During much of that time, she was also director of the undergraduate physical education and athletic training programs. For the past 11 years, she has been director of graduate physical education. And some of her past awards include being inducted into APU's prestigious Athletic Hall of Fame and having received the APU School of Education Teaching Excellence Award. When asked about professional accomplishments that bring her satisfaction, Dr. Tanis pointed out her work in course and program design, which includes co-authoring the APU Sport Management Emphasis Program and co-authoring the state-accredited Adaptive Physical Education Program. And other work that she has done that she points to that brings her satisfaction is developing the online MS in Physical Education program. She considers it both a privilege and responsibility to have taught at APU since 1986.
Not that old, Don.
Yeah, 1986. And one thing she really has enjoyed during that time is working with adult learners in the MS and PE program as they bring years of their own experience from teaching, coaching, and administration professions. You might have noticed that throughout this introduction that I've been careful to refer to our speaker as Dr. Tanis. Should be noted, however, that doctor is not her preferred title. This past summer, she became a first-time grandmother, and apparently she prefers Grammy now to doctor. But that being said, I'm happy to present to you today's sabbatical presentation speaker, Dr. Tanis, and her talk is entitled The Importance of the 7 Principles of Online Learning for Faculty Teaching and Student Learning.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that warm introduction, Don, and my friends and colleagues that I see here on this Zoom. It means so much to me that you're here. I can even see my daughter is linking in from Kampala, Uganda right now with her husband, Peter. So love you guys. Thanks for your support. I've got some former students and a current student on, dear friends and colleagues that I've been with, some for many, many years, 35 years, and some just for a short time. So it means a lot to me that you're here today, especially since you probably didn't want to do yet another Zoom outing. But yeah, this presentation was initially scheduled a year ago, and then we all know what happened with COVID, and so it's been postponed until today. So again, thank you for coming. As Don had mentioned, in the chat, there is a URL that will bring you directly to the paper that I published as a result of this research. There's quite a few details in this model that I'm going to be sharing with you. So if you're more of a visual learner and you want to see it in real time, you might find page 23 to be helpful to you, because it's the appendix and it includes the survey that I developed and that I used for my data gathering. So if you don't want to, that's fine. I'm going to be using some PowerPoint to drive us in our research. And then I really want to spend some time at the end to field your questions, hopefully have some answers, and maybe some collaborative time as we discuss together some of our best practices in online teaching, okay?
Hey,
So
Cindy, I'm sorry, can we, or Grammy, can we interrupt because we don't see the link to the paper?
it's at the top of the chat.
We don't see it yet. Maybe it's because we came in later.
Let me do
Would
it
someone
again.
mind posting it again?
You bet, here it comes. And
Thank you, Grammy.
you're welcome. I love it. Okay, so I'm going to start sharing my screen. Here we go. I'm at APU today and I'm finding that the internet's a little slow. Are you able to view my PowerPoint now? There we go. Yes, awesome. Okay. So my sabbatical was offered to me in fall 2018, and that seems like so long ago. It's almost time for another one. And I'm sure some of you would want to join me on that, but I was very, very thankful for the opportunity. In fact, I learned of the award in the spring of 2018, which allowed me to work ahead a little bit on my IRB, because it was really important for me to be able not only to research, but I was really excited to also be able to rest and rejuvenate, which we know is also an important part of sabbatical. So I want to show you a slide that just gives you a snapshot of what that rest and rejuvenation looked like to me. So on the left column are some pictures. My husband and I started my sabbatical with a 3-week road trip to Oregon. We camped in our van, and it was a wonderful time just to come down and decompress. During that time, we hiked Crater Lake, highly recommended. We went through the redwoods, we went on the beach, it was just perfect. Another event that occurred during that fall was we had the opportunity to work with some friends with an organization that builds homes. Hands of Mercy is the name, and this is a picture on the top right of us building a home for a family in Ensenada. It was a very humbling and very rich experience for us. And then the bottom left, that might be a little unusual to you, but I love to play piano. I started taking lessons when I was 8 years old, and so my husband blessed me with a used baby grand, and the timing was just right because I had plenty of time just to sit down at the piano and enjoy some playing. So, and then I had to show you a picture of my granddaughter because she is just gorgeous. She's the best thing that came out of 2020. Her name is Addison Joy, and she gives us quite a bit of joy. So now on to my research. So as Dawn had mentioned, I've been the program director for graduate PE since 2010. And at that time, I noticed there were more and more online programs being developed. And probably being the competitor that I am inside, I thought, you know, we need to get ahead of this wave. And so I consulted with ITT and said, what will it take for us to be able to move our 36-unit MS in physical education program online. And so a couple of years worth, and by 2013, we were fully functional online program, as well as offering it in a face-to-face program. Regardless, even before this online program, our faculty have always used online as a companion. So we were very comfortable with that. I've used eCollege, eCompanion, Sakai, Canvas. We've gone from 9 weeks to 8 weeks. So we really have been immersed as faculty in this online learning. In 2017, I had the opportunity to take the class Teaching with Technology by the ITT group and Michael Trong. And I recommend this highly. If you have not taken this class and it's offered again, it was so helpful, enriching, and this is really where my interest in this area kicked in and really launched. At that time, Michael presented this basic handout called Sakai and the Seven Principles. And in this handout, it presented this model. At that time, it was Chickering and Gamson. They developed it in 1987. And this model was initially designed for undergrad face-to-face classes. But then by 1996, Chickering and his colleague Ehrman took this model and translated it into online learning. So as I'm reviewing this document and I see these 7 principles, and now I'm thinking back to all of the online classes that our program offers, it was just this aha moment. I don't know, Michael, maybe you saw the light bulb go on over my head, but it was this aha moment of saying, wow, I see these components in our online classes. I didn't know that there was a model that was being used. And then it had me thinking, I wonder how important this model or the components of this model is to our students in their learning, and even more importantly, to our faculty in their teaching. Because this is an area of research that is very limited. We don't see a lot of faculty perceptions of online teaching. We get the feedback from the student. And think about it, as faculty, maybe you've been offered an online class. Congratulations, you get to teach an online class. And it's given to you and maybe it's empty and you have to develop it, or it's given to you and it's a mess and you have to transition it into something functional. So I really wanted to investigate the faculty's perception. What's important to them in their online teaching? So that's how I got the ball rolling in this research. So I want to take a little bit of time to help you understand this model, because this is the foundation of my research. So again, it's based off Chickering and Gamson, transitioned by Chickering and Ehrman to online. And there's 7 major principles. Within these 7 principles, there's 3 overarching themes where they are housed. So the first theme is collaboration. And in this, it's the collaboration that takes place between the faculty and the student in the classroom, and then also the collaboration between student and student, okay? So those are principles 1 and 2 under the umbrella of collaboration. The second major area is engagement. And engagement consists of active learning techniques that are actually embedded into that course. The second thing is the importance of prompt feedback from faculty to student. The next one is having appropriate time for tasks and listing those expectations very clearly, not only in the syllabus, but also cross-referencing it in the online classroom. The third major theme is differentiation, and that just means we tailor the design to meet our students' needs, okay? And in this, we have principle 6, having high performance expectations of our students. And number 7, having respect for their diverse learning preferences, okay? So with further research, I realized this model is not only used for online development, but it's also used for training of faculty and other facilitators of online. And it's also used as a means for assessment. And so that really encouraged me to move forward with this model, knowing that it's got a wide base of use. So from this, I developed my purpose statements, and I had 2 purpose statements and 2 research questions, again, based on this model. First, I wanted to investigate the faculty perceptions of this model. How important were each of these principles in their online teaching? And also, I wanted to investigate the alumni perceptions of these 7 principles of online learning to their online learning. When I say alumni, I mean the alumni of the MS and PE program, because they were my participants. So research question 1 developed from that: how important are each of these principles for faculty? And then I had an open-ended question that allowed them to just narrate some positive and negative influence that they find in their online teaching. Research question 2 was based on the students' perception of this online model for their learning, and what factors do they find to be beneficial or a negative influence in their online learning. So with further investigation, I found Schweibert, 2012, had developed a survey based on this model. And he administered this survey to 45 online junior college students. So I appreciated the population. It was close to what we do here in the graduate level at APU. And so I investigated his survey. He had the 7 principles that I've just discussed. And then he developed statements as they related to each of these principles. And I'll discuss that more in a second. He developed a 5-point Likert scale from completely unimportant, which was 1, to critically important, which was number 5. Okay. When I investigated that survey and I looked at it and then cross-referenced to what I saw in our online class design and in our teaching practices, I realized he was doing something good here, but he didn't provide any psychometric data. So that was one area of concern. Also, I added another 11 statements because I felt like there were certain components in these principles that needed a little further investigation. Okay, so I used the same 5-point Likert scale, same 7 principles, but I added 45 statements. So this next slide that I'm going to show you, I don't mean to put us in the weeds too long. I promise I'll pull you back out, but I need to help you understand his survey in relationship to my survey. Okay, so I had to conduct some psychometric work to check for reliability. And the statistics, if you're not familiar with that, is called alpha Cronbach's. And this scale is used to help us discern how closely related a set of items are to each other as a group. Hare et al. In their multivariate data statistics book said that for exploratories such as this, a 0.6 level is acceptable. So we needed a 0.6 and above with a correlation greater than 0.3. So initially, if we look at the left column, principle 1, I ran the alpha reliability statistic on Schweibert's 5 statements, and it came up with a result of 0.6. I chose to add 5 more statements to this because I felt like there were some things that I also wanted to include. For example, the instructor provides weekly announcements and emails that recap the unit. Students are required to respond occasionally via video. The instructor is available over the weekend, etc. So if you're referencing the article, you'll be able to see this survey clearly on page 23. I ran the alpha again and notice how it improved to 0.87. So I kept all 10 statements related to principle 1. I ran it again for principle 2. Schweibert's came up with 0.76. I added another 2 of my own. The alpha dropped a little bit, but it's still very acceptable. So I kept both of those statements. Principle 3 on Schweibert came up at 0.69. I added 1 more statement and it increased to 0.73. So I kept that statement. Principle 4, Schweibert had 5. We were at 0.75, acceptable. I added a statement, it dropped, but it's still within appropriate range, so I chose to keep it. Principle 5 was 5 statements at a alpha 0.64. I added the statement assessments in the online class are open book note with enough time to successfully complete them. When I added that statement, the alpha dropped, so I chose to remove that, and I did not include that in my final survey. Principle 6 for Schweibert was at a 0.86. I added 1 statement, it stayed the same. So as a result, the final survey that I used was the 7 principles, but I had 45 statements in those, okay? Okay, so now I went to my main analysis. And at this point, I recruited 2 sets of participants. Again, I recruited my faculty with the same 45 item online survey. There's the 5 responses, 1 to 5, and then 2 additional open-ended questions. The second group were the alumni from APU's online or full program, not just online. And the same survey was being used, but this time we made it relation to their teaching. I'm sorry, to their learning. So for the teaching for the faculty and the learning for the alumni. Additionally, I included some demographic items, and I'll show those now. So 14 full-time and adjunct faculty from APU's MS&PE program were invited, and 12 participated. We had a 50-50 of male and female, and you can read the online teaching experiences that were listed there. I also contacted 358 alumni who graduated between 2009 and 2017. Now, although we did not have a 100% online program at that time, as I mentioned earlier, we were using a companion online class. Okay, so they would have been exposed to that at that time. 111 participated with a 31% response rate. We had 59% male and 41% female. And you can see the demographics there. 39% completed just 25% of their coursework online, and then 61% completed 25 to 100% of their coursework online. Okay, so now as we go through the results, I'm going through the results not according to principle 1 to 7, but to the highest response rate. And because this is ordinal data, I ran median and interquartile range, IQR. So median is the number right in the middle of the distribution, and IQR measures the dispersion or the spread. So what we know about that is the lower the IQR, that means there's consensus, and the larger IQR means that the opinions are polarized. They're all over the place. Okay, so that will help you in understanding some of the statistics. So when I looked at all 45 items and I aggregated all that data, principle 6 came up with the highest response rate. Included in principle 6 were 6 specific survey items that involved having high standards of academic and personal integrity, having clearly stated course objectives in the syllabus, but also in the online class, making sure that they cross-reference, and using rubrics, templates and exemplars to ensure understanding. Okay, so that was interesting. The highest score of all 45 items was below. Instructors hold students to high standards of performance, academic honesty, and professional conduct. 100% of faculty and 82% of alumni identified this as most critical to their teaching and their learning. I was surprised. I did not think that this would be my number one. And at first, to be honest, I thought, oh man, do we have a conflict of interest already showing? You know, Tanis is the program director. She signs my adjunct contract, right? She signs my degree completion plan. So it concerned me a little bit. But then when I did more research, I saw, no, this is cross-referenced in research. My findings were not completely different than others. And I'll emphasize that in just a little bit as we get into the discussion. So the next principle for the highest was principle 7, having respect for diverse learning preferences. And this consisted of 5 items. This received the second highest combined score. Within this principle, there were 3 items that were critically to fairly important, both to faculty and to our alumni. Number 1, throughout the term, there are multiple ways for students to demonstrate their knowledge of the subject. That includes tests, assignments, and discussions. Second, students are allowed to and encouraged to share opinions and experiences that might be different from the instructor. And third, instructors are willing to adapt the course to match the students' needs. So similar responses from both faculty and alumni. For faculty, orientation sessions and technical help being provided for students who aren't comfortable with computers was more important to their teaching than it was for alumni in their learning. So it could be alumni didn't feel the need for that technical support or that orientation, but yet faculty said, no, that's really important that they have that for my teaching. Another difference is that for alumni, students are allowed to select their topics and papers as long as it matches the instructor guidelines. That was more important to alumni than it was to their faculty. The third highest response was prompt feedback. It consisted of 6 items. 5 of these items were critically and fairly important to both faculty and to alumni in their teaching and their learning. Scores are returned within a week. The faculty provides constructive comments. There's a time frame for replying to emails, and again, and it's listed in the syllabus. Quiz questions and scores need to be available, and rubrics for grading and feedback need to be available for student viewing. For alumni, practice or sample quizzes being provided to allow students to prepare for the test was fairly to critically important to their learning, but faculty found this mostly unimportant to their teaching. Principle 5 was the next highest level of importance for faculty teaching and also for students in their learning. It was consistent that the instructor provide a schedule of activities within the syllabus and the course calendar that was critical for both faculty and alumni. For faculty, the syllabus mentions the amount of time students should expect to spend on the class in a week. That was more important to them, but not as important to alumni. So alumni didn't think it was that important to know how much time that they should expect to spend in a class. For faculty, weekly assignments, discussion boards, and quizzes was important in their teaching, but not as much in alumni in their learning. Instructors posting regular reminders in the online class about upcoming due dates was critically to fairly important to both groups. And then finally, students log in to their online class at least 3 days a week was somewhat to critically important to faculty and also to alumni. The next principle was Principle 1, faculty to student communication and collaboration. This principle included 10 items on the survey. Faculty identified 5 of the 10 items as critically to fairly important to their teaching. Instructors need to reply to emails in 24 hours. They participate in discussions. They post a photo. Students should post a photo, and students respond in video instead of writing. However, alumni only identified 3 of the 10 items in this principle as critically to fairly important, and that was replying to emails, participating in discussions, and providing announcements. I thought it was a little comical. They really don't care about faculty posting our mug in the classroom or students posting a photo, but the timeliness and participation and announcements was important to the students in their learning. Principle 3 consists of active learning techniques, and the survey contains 6 items. For both faculty and alumni, students having the opportunity to apply what they've learned to real-life issues was critically important to both groups. Also, faculty and alumni preferred images, video, and audio to emphasize course content instead of the boring old silent PowerPoint notes or lecture material. So that it was clear for both groups that that was important to their teaching and also to their learning. And then finally, the last principle 2, this received the lowest score, student-to-student communication and collaboration, and it contains 7 items on the survey. The first one, students can choose to respond to the forum, also known as discussion, of any colleague in the class. This was critically important to faculty and fairly to someone important to alumni. There were 6 items in this principle that implies student-to-student communication and collaboration was fairly to someone important for faculty and alumni, and you can see that listed right there at the bottom of the slide. So now for some discussion. We'll go back to Principle 6. Again, this was the highest response to both faculty and alumni as being critical. Johnson says that if we have higher expectations for our students, we're going to get higher learning. And conversely, if we have low expectations, there's going to be low learning. Students believe that the course is high quality and their level of education and proficiency improves when the instructor requires high academic standards. Finally, instructors should direct students to, again, the course syllabus and the course module where these expectation goals and objectives are clearly outlined, and then hold students to those standards. So the old motto was students pay the fee to get the B. That is not represented in this result at all. They want high performance expectations. And I would also add, they want high performance in that online class, that the links are working and that's properly populated and that it's easy to navigate. That is also included in this high performance expectation. Think about it for ourselves. When we go on a website, maybe it's new to us and we find that there's broken links or the information is incorrect or the contact in the chat that should be there is not working. We lose trust in it, right? I'll click out of there. And that's the same for our students. They expect to have a solidly designed, high functioning classroom that's working with the faculty right there ready to learn with them. The respect for diverse learning preferences. They need to have multiple ways to demonstrate their knowledge. That shows us respect so that we're not just requiring just discussions or we're not just requiring just assignments. They need to have real life projects, and that shows quite a bit of respect for their diverse learning preferences. It also carries over into active learning. Encouraging student autonomy, very important. Allowing them independent work and thinking is also very important. In regards to students being allowed to select their topics, so just for this presentation, I'm sticking primarily with the quantitative analysis, but there was a qualitative theme here that they desired flexibility and freedom. And so I think we need to keep that in the back of our mind when we're teaching a class, to allow that for our students. And one way we can is to enable them a range of their topics for course papers. And then finally, having appropriate orientation and technical support so that they can work smoothly without barriers. That's important. We're also reminded in research, though, that when technology doesn't work, instructors need to be flexible and adjust accordingly. Prompt feedback includes both verbal communication and written communication. So first, scores from tests and assignments being returned to students within a week is critical. Included with these scores is also constructive written or audio comments so that they have a narrative. They have both qualitative and quantitative feedback. Again, we need to have a time frame for replying to emails clearly listed in the syllabus. That's highly critical. Students want to see those quiz questions and the scores after they've completed the quiz. And rubrics need to be available for student viewing in the class so that they have an understanding of how they will be evaluated before they complete the class. Some research showing positives and negatives in regards to these recommendations. First of all, students' overall satisfaction of the class correlates quite a bit with immediacy of faculty feedback. They want to know that there's a live person directing that online class. The negative of that, though, is that it takes a lot of time to provide in-depth comments, and that can be really challenging for faculty. The positive of rubrics, in addition to exemplars, is it gives an ideal online teaching strategy. It's also included as an active technique. The negative of that is stating that giving them a rubric or a checklist for every assignment, students just become doers rather than engagers. So that's something to consider as well as you are working towards rubrics and exemplars. Appropriate time for tasks. Again, we need a schedule of activities within the syllabus and the course calendar. Some qualitative findings. It was beneficial to students when they had a weekly written, audio, or video reminder by their faculty to keep them on track for upcoming coursework. That helped them to stay on task. That also encourages feedback too. So you can see strategies overlap among the principals. A negative for student work was busy work or non-scaffolded discussions or other time wasters. They found those to be definite inhibitors to their learning, and it reduced their overall impression of the class. So Chickering and Ehrman state time plus energy equals learning. Learning to use one's time well is critical for students and professionals alike. And again, there's the course expectations that needs to be clearly listed in both the syllabus and the online classroom and include the deadlines and responsibilities for both the student and the instructor of the course. Principle 1, faculty to student communication and collaboration. Faculty providing prompt replies to emails within 24 hours. That's a standard that we follow within our program. And you can see that was very critical to both faculty and to alumni. Faculty replying to discussions, praising good points, asking questions, encouraging deeper thought. That was more important to faculty, but also important to half of the alumni. It was highly critical. Providing weekly announcements to recap, that was critical. And then in the following list at the end, according to faculty, this was critical to their teaching, but it was not critical to the majority of alumni. So again, there's our picture of our faculty, not really concerned about that, offering online office hours, being available over the weekend, calling the student once in the term, having students post videos or photos, and then students responding to the class via video instead of writing. That was not as critical to alumni as it was to our faculty. Active learning techniques. Students need to have the opportunity to apply what they learn to real life issues. So theory into practice. Additionally, the classroom needs to include images, video, and audio, not just written content. I love this quote by Craig, 2015. The online class should not merely be a repository of information or consist solely of the holy trinity of online instruction with a repeat of the lecture, discussion group, and weekly assignment. That is not considered active learning. Active learning techniques, what do? They require students to engage in higher order learning, thinking, and doing while learning from their peers and applying the information to real life. It makes the course effective and alive for both the faculty and the student. It includes both direct, so that would be doing and observing experiences outside the classroom, like shadowing, interning, interviewing, and also indirect experiences such as case studies, debates, and simulations. Principle 2, this had the least highest scores. It was not as critical to both faculty and to students. And this is consistent with other studies as well. Interesting though, the qualitative findings from alumni suggest that lack of communication, lack of personal interaction, isolation, and not feeling connected to others in the class was an inhibitor to their learning. Yet in the quantitative analysis, they did not find the different aspects of Principle 2 to be critical to their online learning. Students work together in the class to complete a group project or paper, mostly unimportant. The feedback was it's too difficult to connect with other students, or one person is doing all the work and then everybody else is getting the grade for that. However, the use of case studies, and that's a practice that we use in the MS and PE program, that seemed to be a little bit more important. It's more of an active learning technique and allows them to utilize the information into their vocation. So some limitations. I realized this was a homogeneous group of participants, right? I use my own faculty, my own students. There's some concern with that. However, the strength was I knew that their experiences were the same. They were looking at the same online classes. So when I was surveying them, then I was assured that, okay, we have at least consistency in that area. Okay. The weakness with that, and I mentioned already, it's the researchers' acquaintances. I could have had potential response bias. Also, we only had 12 faculty, and I'm not able to generalize findings with such a small group. Future research, yes, please, definitely. I'd like to recruit faculty and students from other programs and institutions. I'd like to use a 3 instead of a 5-point scale. I thought the 5-point scale was a little cumbersome at times. And I'd like to use some additional open-ended questions to explore preferred teaching and learning practices for faculty and for students. So how do we apply this? Let me check in my time how we're doing. Perfect. So I really appreciate this quote. If you're going to be an online instructor, it's not static, it's dynamic, it's moving, and it's not one-dimensional. You don't just create the class and then walk away. There's no autopilot. It's people, it's us. We're behind it. And so we need to engage in it. We need to in a sense, live it. I remember when my husband and I were on our road trip, there's something about, on the road and with your feet up on the dashboard. And we were talking about the differences in teaching face-to-face and online. And I was really trying to wrap my head around it. So when we teach on ground, face-to-face in class, whatever you would like to call it, we go to class, we see our students, we do our thing, we'll see you next week. There might be some interaction in the week, but it's pretty limited. So I kind of perceive that as occasional attendance. But when we teach online, man, there's this attentiveness. I feel like I live the class with them. I'm monitoring the emails. I'm monitoring their work in the class, what the feedback is, how are they doing on the quizzes, providing announcements. So it's not only a prescription, but it's a posture. I think we really have to understand that you don't just develop the class and push the button and it's automated. There's a lot more to it. And that's where you get the joy of teaching, as well as having that attentiveness to your class. So some other applications. And again, I find that many of these strategies overlap and you're able to apply multiple principles when you use them. So this introductory email to incoming students, we use that the week before the term begins. That works with great feedback. It gives them an idea of expectations in the class. It gives them opportunity to work ahead. We're going to publish the class 3 days early so that we can respect those diverse learning preferences. Some might not be as familiar with online. We use a prerequisite discussion that actually includes a course contract so that they are clear about the course learning outcomes, the requirements, the evaluation due dates, and also academic standards. We use written, audio, and video methods to instruct and interact. Recently, some of us have been using a mobile messaging platform like GroupMe or Remind. And we have found pretty good results on this, especially for our students who are completing their capstone. These are working professionals, and we know that the weekends are very important to them to work. If we can have a faculty available to answer a short question on the weekend, that just propels them ahead in their work. And so some of us have been using this mobile messaging platforms and have found it to be very beneficial to our teaching and also to our students' learning. We'll use check-ins with email, Zoom, phone call. I use a weekly announcement and I use the motto, reflect, inspect, project. So I start with either a video or a written message stating, hey, last week we did such and such, that's the reflect. This week we're gonna do this, that's the inspect. And next week we're gonna do the following, that's the project. So you have this cyclical wheel in a sense that enables you to always have touch points on all aspects of the class. We will use written discussions and then require occasionally student-generated video responses, and that seems to be a good practice. We try to integrate as much learning by doing instead of learning by reading or watching. Case study development has been a very rich discussion in our classroom, and it promotes critical thinking, and it's a great active learning strategy. We have rubrics, exemplars, and templates embedded in every classroom, accessible to all our students and faculty. Thank you to Elaine and the others who helped us design those, because they're very helpful. You got to remember too, if you have multiple sections of a class, you want to make sure that there's consistency in that evaluation. We've recently designed an orientation class for our students that they complete prior to their first actual graduate class. And it includes a faculty welcome, program policies, some technology tips, research and writing. And this is a great way just to start that communication and to let them know our high performance expectations. So how do we wrap this up? Well, just a reminder, the most critical component for our faculty and alumni is that high performance. They want it to be rigorous, but they also want it to be well-designed and fully functioning, and they want a human being behind it. And there's no automated. Overall, the alumni, those students, they prefer engagement with their faculty more than engagement with other students or even the course content. So our presence is really important. Faculty in that qualitative piece, it came out, they really appreciate a well-designed class so that they don't have to be troubleshooting and correcting and fixing. That way they can focus primarily then on feedback, communication, evaluation, and instruction. So that final quote at the bottom, this is just a summary, and I know there's a lot to it, but to be most effective, us as online instructors, we need to be energetic, organized, communicative with our students. We need to have a consistent presence in our online classes to provide an active, quality learning experience through faculty, student, and content engagement. Here are a list of the references. And again, there's my publication. If you're interested in referencing that, it's listed there. Hey, you're still all there. No one ran away. That's nice. Okay, I'm done talking.
Well,
Any
we have about
questions?
10 minutes or so for questions. And you can just do this via, unmute and ask a question, or if you want to ask a question in the chat, I'll be looking at the chat and I'll bump in as needed with your questions.
Thank you.
Grammy,
Yes.
how has this model affected future enrollments, students that are coming in? Or has it affected how many people are coming to your program?
That's a good question. Well, I know it has affected some of our design. So for example, our orientation class, that came as a result of this research, because I felt like we could just enable them, prepare them a little bit more before they start their graduate journey. As far as numbers, I think we're dealing with the COVID virus right now, but the overall feedback of our online program has been very positive.
Hi, Cindy. I'll ask you a quick question. First, congratulations. Thank you for sharing and such a great presentation. I'm sure we're all taking notes on it too. I was wondering, because you did go back into alumni starting in like 2009. So I know a number of them were in kind of a hybrid model already. So they were doing seat time plus using online as a companion. I'm wondering if you pulled out any of the purely online students to look at their responses, because it surprised me with the not necessarily needing like the pictures or the phone call, during the term. And so I'm wondering, maybe because they were sitting in class already, they didn't need that portion online. If you were to pull out solely online, would they have a different ranking or reaction? I don't know if you were able to distinguish that particular group.
Yeah, I think that's a great feedback. I did not just tweeze that group out, but my hunch is that I would see a difference like you mentioned. And the part that surprised me too, Angela, was that they didn't need to have faculty access on the weekend. But yet we've just recently integrated that practice. So if I did that again with these newer graduates, we might find a different result on that. But yeah, that's a very good point. However, let me go back to that, Angela. Other research in that area clearly show that the student-to-student communication, that is the lowest priority for online learners. They need to have contact with faculty, and they need to have the ability to really engage in good content. Those were the two primaries. So, yeah. Tom, you had asked, you mentioned that faculty appreciate a well-designed program. Was there ever a time when faculty did do-it-yourself design instead of using ITT? Of course, we would never do that, Tom. That would be disrespectful. Well, absolutely, we do, because faculty sometimes are awarded, congratulations, you get to teach an online class. And here it is. Now, this was not recent practice by any means. This was probably in my earlier days of program director, where, yeah, there was just no one to rely on. So you had to figure it out. We've come such a long way. Oh my goodness. I think there still needs, I don't know what it will take, but there still seems to be a stigma that faculty and ITT designers are not on the same team. It's us versus them. And I don't know what it would take, because you guys really aren't that scary. In fact, you're brilliant. But I think if faculty can appreciate they're not going to lose their academic freedom by having an ITT assistant in an online class, it's only going to benefit them. I think we can come a long ways. But when we try to do it ourselves, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's building the plane and flying it at the same time, which we know is not a good model by any means. Thank you.
Cindy, I have another question. And that is, we hear a lot from faculty that, because in your situation, your online courses are the same or very similar to your face-to-face courses.
Correct.
And any online course with multiple sections are the same. So we hear a lot of pushback about academic freedom. How do you feel about academic freedom, and how stringent do you feel that it makes your teaching or not?
Yes. Thank you. Great question. So yes, if we teach a section of face-to-face and 3 sections of online, that face-to-face is going to use that online platform as a companion. It's just a given. The collaboration that has occurred in developing our online program has been amazing. It hasn't been just me. I've been the one pushing the paperwork, keeping us on task, but it's been a group of us around a table. I think it does not limit your academic freedom. It probably increases it, because you have such a variety of options to present it to your class. So for example, Angela will teach the research method or the capstone class, and she's using poster presentations right now, where the rest of us are choosing to do video presentations. So that's okay. That's her choice. She may do that. But kind of the unspoken rule in our program is, if we're going to make changes to these online classes, we collaborate with each other first. And that gives us ideas, and it helps us with the best practice. So never have I felt like my academic freedom has been taken away. If anything, it's been promoted through the collaboration.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Andy, was there anything specific to teaching online physical education or kinesiology courses in your study, other than the participants, or was it for more generic online courses? Andy, why don't you verbalize that one for me? If you can, unless you have your baby on your lap. Okay, I see the baby. So in my paper, I do reference the way that we design our case studies, either in my sports medicine class or in sports psychology, where we develop the case study or the student develops, and then they have that interaction with each other. But as far as the research coming in, it was for all online classes, but I stayed strictly higher ed. I did not go into the K-12 area of research, just because I wanted to, there's a lot out there. I wanted to kind of stay tight within the higher ed. Does that answer enough? Okay.
I have one quick question for you, Cindy. You mentioned how time-consuming online teaching can be. That there's oftentimes people think of it just almost as a vending machine if they don't know online.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on class size for online courses versus your face-to-face courses?
Boy, I could really open a can of worms here, Tom. You're really setting me up.
Yeah, it was a dirty trick. I know.
It was, I know. You know, we know if we're going to do a job well done, there's just so much time we have to make contact with everybody, right? So ideal class size, I think a lot of it depends on the content. So when we're teaching our thesis capstone, we're capped at 6 students, and we're working really, really hard on that. In our seminar class, I try to cap it at 12. Well, as a result of that, I have to bring my other classes to 30 just so that I get my average that's needed, right? As far as working hard, I'm finding repositories are getting more and more helpful for me. I'll have a repository of announcements that I can go back and see what I stated the year before and how I can change that. That has been very helpful. Rubrics, so important. And then just learning some new strategies. But yes, that is all influenced by class size. Absolutely. It can make it real challenging. You know, with COVID and using Zoom so much, I'm finding I'm going to utilize this as a good practice just to start the term and allow anyone to come to the table, to ask questions, to get to know each other. I think that can be a real healthy practice, especially with large classes. And it will help you to see, to differentiate your students and who might need a little bit more contact, who doesn't need that, who are have more autonomy in their work. So yeah, it's a difficult one. I should flip it around and ask you the question now.
I agree with you. How about that? Yeah.
Thank you, Tom.
All right.
We might have time for one more question. It's
I have a
almost 1
question.
o'clock.
I have a question, Dr. Grammy.
Thank you.
Based on your work, what's the question that's just, you know, burning on your heart right now, more than any other?
Where are we missing the mark? Where's a low-hanging fruit that we just need to pluck it and we just don't realize it's there or that it's important? Again, it's never static. So my mind is always going, what else can we do? And it's not necessarily, we don't need more tools. It's not about how many fancy tools you bring in. It's this, it's about us. So I think that's the area. How am I really addressing the diversity needs in my classroom? Not only their diverse learning preferences, but their diverse journey in life. What's their story? Are they a first-gen student? Is English their primary? Are they terrified of writing? You know, and how can we encourage them? How can we empower them in that journey? Especially towards the beginning. Don't wait until they get to capstone, but right away at the beginning. So I'm really hoping to be able to integrate more of that in our orientation. We can't get enough of that, especially because we've got a pretty good sized program. How do we meet all the diverse needs of our students? So that's that burning question that stays in me. I don't necessarily need to learn new tools, and sorry about that. That could be because I'm not as young as a lot of you guys, so I don't need the latest, greatest app. What I do need is an app and tools that work really good, but then really thinking about how do I throw that net really wide to be able to draw in all of our students and their diverse needs. That's, I think, the burning question. So I appreciate that. That's a very good question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, hey, thanks everybody for joining us this afternoon and for your great questions and participation. And I'd like to just thank our speaker once more,
Thank you.
Grammy or Dr. Tanis,
Dr.
however you want to
Tanis.
call her now. And usually at this time, I would come forward up to the podium and present you with a little envelope and say thank you, and it would have a little card in it and a token in there. But since we're not going to do that, I just want to mention that a small contribution will be made to an upcoming pay period for you. So when you see that, just take note of that. It's not a permanent increase in salary or anything like that. It's a one-time contribution, just so you know. But we really appreciate a very a thoughtful and interesting and helpful, useful presentation. I think it's really terrific. And I just want to remind everybody that whether you want it or not, you're going to get a follow-up email, at least if you're on our list, on our reservation list, so that you have a link to the URL with the YouTube in it. And once again, another link to the paper that you published. Congrats on that. That was terrific too as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks everybody.
Thank you. Appreciate you all being here. Means a lot to me. Thank you.